Football
is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass at the moment in time. I don't give a damn. Oh my God. You love this.
30-27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30-20.
Now, this first one isn't maybe as surprising as a lot of them. It is for some people because the Browns did come into this game as a favorite, even though they were the road team. So that tells me that some people were surprised. But there were some other teams that were much more surprising defeats, in my opinion. CJ Stroud, it's going to scroll across the bottom. He was sensational. There's not even a better word to use. Almost perfect on the night. He is doing things that he shouldn't be able to do at his age. He is he reminds me of another young quarterback we'll get to later, but sharp between the ears, diagnosing blitzing, putting the ball in the right spot, taking shots. Like the confidence is, it almost looks like he's been doing this for decades. And I just can't believe this guy's a rookie. The Texans get a home win with DeMeco Ryans, and this is a bandwagon that I'm willing to get on. Rick, what do you think about all this, and what is the ceiling for this new CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans Texans team?
Honestly, what an absolute great game, for your first playoff game. If you're CJ Stroud, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like that's he broke a rookie record for their first playoff game. Touchdowns, yards, whatever it was. Like, what an absolute gamer this guy is, man. And to do that against the Browns defense, which has been one of the top units all season long, to, like you said, avoid blitzes, be able to carve up that defense through the air. What that offense did to this defense was just spectacular. We also got to credit, Singletary, 66 yards and a touchdown. And Singletary is coming from a team, the Bills, that didn't really use him a lot. We always talk about the Bills' run game as being like weak and not really existent during Josh Allen's tenure. And they missed out on a guy like Singletary, who has been killing it so far for the Texans. And this is after taking over a running back that was already there. What's his name? Why can't I remember his name right now?
Dameon Pierce.
Dameon Pierce. I always forget Dameon Pierce's name.
He almost broke the single season rookie record for Houston last year. If he didn't get hurt in the final 3 games, he would have broke it.
Yeah, and to be able to come onto this team and rush for as many yards as you did and go into the playoffs, not only do that, but score a touchdown and have 66 yards in this game for this Texans team. Like the Bills missed out on one with Devin Singletary, in my opinion, but clearly they have James Cook, so they're fine. But yeah, man, what an absolute game for the Texans to have. And the defense, we have to credit the defense, what they did to Joe Flacco, right? 2 interceptions, sacks, like rushing him, giving him no time to throw. This defense did amazing things. Didn't they have like a pick 6 or something at some point?
Joe Flacco threw 3 touchdown passes in the game, but only one of them was to the
there you go. 2 back-to-back. That's what it was. It was like an 80-yarder, and then one, it was like right at the line of scrimmage. The guy took it and ran it in for the touchdown. It was back-to-back. This defense was killing it, man. This entire team, the entire Texans team, killed it at home against their former quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and against a top defense in the NFL this year.
Yeah, dude. And I think for the Browns, now I'm gonna take my moment of glory here. I want to say we, because I just want to add you in with me, but yeah, unfortunately we did disagree on this one. But I did think that we were gonna have a moment to remember who Joe Flacco is. I said he was going to regress and remind the world who he was. And, like it was just like the Steelers game when I was like, put Mitch Trubisky in, and you're like, I don't know if that is a better option.
I don't know about that, Jim.
I don't know about that, because he was a Bear. You know him. Joe Flacco was a Bronco. He was riding a wave of luck. I'm not gonna say just luck. Like he has some skill. Like obviously he's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just a spark, and we didn't just see this with Joe Flacco. We saw this with the Pastronaut.
Yeah.
We saw this with Will Lutz. We
Mhm.
saw this with Mason Rudolph coming in
Mhm.
at the end of the year. So there is just an aspect where I think if you bring in a brand new quarterback and there's not a lot of film on him, they're not really sure how you're going to use him, and they have success, but eventually, everything kind of
Mhm.
falls back into place.
Yeah.
And I think this is a game where it fell back into place. But CJ Stroud, 157.2 passer rating, which
Yeah.
was near perfect.
Yeah.
He had 3 touchdowns. I would say he should have had 4 because there was a bomb downfield and CJ Stroud missed it by maybe 2 yards.
Yeah.
And he threw the ball probably 65 yards downfield. And it was right away in the beginning. And Nico Collins just blew past the secondary. And that's another thing.
Mhm.
This Nico Collins
Savage.
is the real deal, man.
Yeah.
And like behind every great quarterback, there's a great wide receiver.
Mhm.
That's just how it is. And I think CJ Stroud's really benefiting from Nico Collins. And remember, Tank Dell was another guy that was really amazing. So keeping in mind that this Texans team is actually missing a key wide receiver is insane
Mhm.
to get the full perspective of what CJ Stroud's doing with what weapons he has. He was 16 for 21. He threw for 274 yards. He could have threw for 400 yards in this game if he wanted to, but they decided to pull him out of the game because it was a blowout and it didn't even matter. They had 356 yards before they decided to take their foot off the pedal. They steamrolled a Cleveland defense that has been demolishing opponents all year. That's been what has kind of pulled them into the playoffs. And then when they needed them to show up the most, look, I don't know if they came out with the radio listening to 50 Cent, I'll whoop your head, boy.
I'll whip your head, boy.
I'm willing to bet they didn't. And I'm willing to bet that is the reason that they didn't end up winning this game. Joe Flacco, he entered the game 5-0 in wildcard games. So this is going to be his first loss in the wild card round. And there was one other thing that I thought was really interesting. It was that there were only 5 active quarterbacks in the NFL that have won a Super Bowl. And we know that the quarterback is gone to a new era. We've talked about that, the Drew Brees, Manning, all that. But the 5 quarterbacks, you have Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Okay, they're not even a thought right now.
Nope.
Joe Flacco, and then Joe Flacco. Who is the other quarterback that was Matthew Stafford? And that just leaves one quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is literally in a league of his own right now. It's not like Manning and Brady or Breeze and Rivers. Like, it's Patrick Mahomes, and that's it.
Everyone else,
This is a complete new generation of quarterbacks. And I think CJ Stroud's going to be one of those key quarterbacks that we're talking about a long time from now. And that's what's exciting. That's why I bring it up, is because Russell Wilson, his prime is gone. Aaron Rodgers, gone. Joe Flacco probably never plays again. Matthew Stafford, his days are numbered. Maybe 1 or 2 more seasons. But Patrick Mahomes, like, that's it. So on the other side, though, you got Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, CJ Stroud. These are the Jared Goff. These are the quarterbacks that are still in the playoffs right now. And it's shocking to me because I'm just not used to seeing this. There's normally a couple, usually 2 out of the last 4 at least have won a Super Bowl. Once in a while, you'll get a team that's like, oh, how did the Bengals get in there? But this is crazy. I mean, Lions, Tampa, Packers. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think the NFL is just headed in a great direction right now. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they have to go home early. But I think with Deshaun Watson coming back next year,
Mhm.
and another year in the system, I don't know how rusty he's going to be missing the second half, but he
Yeah.
was clearly better from week 1 to week 8 than what we saw last year from week 16, 17, 18, whatever it was when he got back from his, I think it was a 12-game suspension.
Yeah, 12 games
Yeah,
total.
that sounds right. So, yeah, he was rusty last year. He came back a little bit better. I think that with the healthy Deshaun Watson, we know they got the coach. We know the defense is great, and we know Nick Chubb's coming back. I think this is a Browns team that can make a Super Bowl push next year. But with Joe Flacco, unfortunately, it's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, it was over for him, man. And I like the conversation and what points you're making with the quarterbacks, right? Because what happened just over a year ago when Lovie Smith was the the head coach for this Texans team, right? What happened with Davis Mills? Last play of the season, Davis Mills throws one into the end zone. The Texans score a touchdown, and they do not clinch the number 1 overall pick. They no longer controlled who was going first between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. The Bears did. The Bears traded it away and said, thank you, Lovie Smith. Thank you, prior coach who was the last one to bring us to greatness, to any sort of greatness. Thank you for giving us the number 1 pick. Bears flipped it, made it to DJ Moore, gave it to the Panthers. Panthers selected Bryce Young, and the Texans did not have to make a choice. The choice was made for them. It was CJ Stroud, and look where they're at because of that decision. You know, I look back at that and I'm like, Texans fans, because if I were a Texans fan, I would probably hate Lovie Smith for going for the win and not securing that number 1 overall pick, right? But to kind of leave that decision already made for you after the Panthers took Bryce Young, and yes, it could have gone the other way. They could have gone CJ Stroud, but that's not what happened. You know, the Texans fans, in a sense, have to thank Lovie Smith now, too, for not only going for the win, but securing CJ Stroud, a guy who we are now having the conversation of being one of the next generational talents in the NFL. Texans fans, you got to thank Lovie Smith for what he did and basically, you know, saying you were going to pick CJ Stroud after the Panthers picked Bryce Young. And at the time, you're probably not thinking that at all. But after an entire offseason, an entire NFL season, the Texans are in the divisional round with CJ Stroud as their quarterback, looking like a rookie sensation, looking like a guy who they can count on for the next decade plus, 20 years, whatever, however long he wants to play. That's the kind of guy CJ Stroud is going to be for the Texans. And you've seen that from him since week 1. One of his press conferences was, I want to make the city of Houston proud to wear Texans gear, proud to wear a hat, proud to wear a jersey, proud to wear a shirt, proud to go to those games. And CJ Stroud, honestly, you and this Texans team, you and D'Amico Ryans, what you guys have done, you guys have made the city of Houston proud to wear Texans gear starting this year. After 2 years of kind of a spiral downward, you have fulfilled that promise no matter what happens from here on out in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I've always had a soft spot. We do have some new visitors, so really briefly, I'll tell you, I always kind of have love for the Texans because, A, they were the only team that was created in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So I remember the day that Texans entered the league. It was
David Carr.
Yeah. And also because my dad was a golf pro, and when we moved to Jacksonville so he could golf, a person he worked with, his brother was a wide receiver for the Texans. His name was Kevin Walter. He wore number 83, and he played actually, I think he was drafted by the Giants, and then he spent time with the Bengals with Chad Johnson. And Ocho's, or not, that's the same person. What's the other guy? The long last.
Hushmanzada.
TJ Hushmanzada. Carson Palmer. And I think I told you, but one Christmas, Carson Palmer actually called me. And there was a package at my front door, and he was like, open it. And I opened it, and it was the entire Bengals. They signed football in the locker room for me.
That's awesome.
So I've always had kind of a soft spot for the Bengals and the Texans for that reason, because every time the Texans came to Jacksonville, I got to like meet all the players and go past the gate where the other fans have to stand at. I got to be on the inside of it and meet Do you remember the wide receiver? God, I was just thinking of him, and
Johnson?
No, not Johnson. He's the Andre Johnson.
Andre Johnson. Yeah.
Andre Johnson. They had a really good tight end at the time. It was fun. It was fun. So they haven't really been relevant. They had that 1 year with Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien, but it's nice to see the Texans have some success because Texans fans are actually pretty loyal for a team that was introduced in 2002. Like the Chargers are still trying to get fans somehow. The dope ass uniforms, dope ass city, great stadium, no fans. So
nothing.
Houston. I don't know if CJ Stroud. Those Texan fans were proud before, and I bet they're even more proud right now.
100%.
The next gen stat of the game is that CJ Stroud averaged a career high 0.69 plus EPA, which is expected yards per attempt. So that's most by a rookie in a quarterback playoff game in this entire era. Stroud completed 7 of 8 passes under pressure for 118 yards, and he was not sacked once. And that was not because he wasn't pressured. It's because CJ Stroud was very quick with his decision making, which is what I meant when I said, man, he is sharp between the ears. He has it figured out. He knew exactly what they were doing. He's motioning. He's figuring out coverages, and he's making he's playing quarterback is what he's doing. He's just doing it at a really high level. So congratulations to the Texans. They get to move on, and next week they're going to have a tough task to go into Baltimore and play the Ravens. But I do like their odds. I do. So especially if they have this guy, and we can't even be like, well, what about the Ravens defense? Like, what about Cleveland's?
Yeah, exactly. What about Cleveland's?
What
right?
about Cleveland's?
And we said it in the intro here, and I think we're both going to go with the same person, but Kyle, who was your MVP of this game between the Browns and the Texans?
CJ Stroud.
It's easy. It's easy to go with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be nice to be a little more creative and come up with something special for you guys. But CJ Stroud's performance was special. And I'm not gonna just pick somebody else when it was clearly his day. It was clearly his moment. And he's the MVP of that game. He arguably is the MVP of the season. And we'll see if he can keep it going.
Same for me. CJ Stroud all the way.
I would bet that would have been funny if you're like, I'm going with Joe Flacco. I know he threw a couple picks, but
I'm going Joe Flacco. He technically won the game for the Texans by throwing 2 touchdowns to him. So
no, he's not. He's not going.